have to study politics and war, so that my sons can study mathematics, commerce, and agriculture, so their sons can study poetry, painting, and music.
And the topic I came up with was, how would you drop the cost of government 10x within 10 years? Right? Which you could do, because you could, if you think about most government functions, is authenticating. Yes, I have a building permit. Yes, you have a fishing license. Yes, you're 18 years old. If I can decentralize that authentication, I can reduce a lot of, government can focus on policy and let all the authentication happen in a decentralized way. That's kind of magical. But to do this, you have to embrace technology, at which point the whole thing broke down. He's like, I can't sell technology to our base. So that was the end of it. The immune system. The immune system.
Governments use force to carry out their monopoly. They make the rules and they can break them. If you break the rules, you'll get kidnapped and imprisoned. The point of blockchain technology is to authenticate, trace, and track. This means that you can trace and track inputs in complex systems like a government and completely rid the institution of corruption. This is why banks and governments are fighting against crypto and public ledgers, because you can completely transform these industries and institutions into efficient and effective, well-oiled machines versus wasteful.
As much as they want, whenever they want. The banks essentially have figured out a huge thing. And they're freaking out right now because we're moving from money, as I said, to information. And so they're trying to tamp down on that as much as possible. So I think the decentralized world is the model, is the vector that gets us out of that. And we need to find structures and institutions that solve that. I think solving for the monetary system, which has a structural flaw in which it will collapse because of the debt problem, is the thing that will bring that down. And I think that'll be the pathway to find this new modality for decentralized structures, et cetera, to at least start to emerge.
The destruction of the debt-based system is driving the move to decentralized systems. And we are witnessing this in real time. The U.S. government is over $35 trillion in debt, while the global debt stands out at $303 trillion. This massive financial instability is pushing people towards decentralized systems like crypto assets.
Crypto, like Bitcoin, I've always said it's a fraud.
No hope for it.
Well, if they think they're a currency, there's no hope for it. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a public, decentralized Ponzi. If it's a crypto coin that can do something, like a smart contract, that has value. There will be smart contracts, and blockchain works. To the extent crypto is accessing certain blockchain things, yeah, that might have some value.
Jamie Dimon has gained from the debt-based system. His bank, JP Morgan, deals with many governments around the world, which helps him profit from the system that takes money from people. At first, banks, including his, said that crypto was a fraud. Now he admits that blockchain networks are useful, and we all know a neutral bridge asset or a payment protocol can be very valuable. Are you tired of dealing with slow, unsecured internet connections? It's time to take control of your online experience with NordVPN. NordVPN offers top-notch security, lightning-fast speeds, and access to content worldwide. Say goodbye to restrictions and hello to freedom. With NordVPN, you could browse, stream, and shop online without worries. Your data stays private and secure no matter where you are. Ever worried about using Wi-Fi in hotels? NordVPN keeps your data safe from hackers and man-in-the-middle attacks by ensuring your privacy and security. With NordVPN, you can protect yourself from cyber threats and keep your personal information secure. And here's an exclusive offer just for you. Visit nordvpn.com/Darren. You'll get 4 extra months on the annual plan. It's 28 months instead of 24 months. Protect your online privacy and enjoy unlimited access to the internet with NordVPN. Don't miss out on this amazing deal.
Because the current system, and I asked Jeff this question, when will it collapse? Because that's the whole big $64 million question. And he's like, which snowflake will cause the avalanche? There's a million snowflakes falling. You don't know which one. You know the avalanche is going to happen.
Yeah.
You just don't know which one will it be. So that's the difficult one.
Yeah, that's the catch. Getting the timing wrong is the same as being wrong.
The only thing we can do right now is, as fast as possible, build the future. And so that's what we're focused on, is like helping. This is why I'm fascinated by Web3, because the culture, the language, the ethics, it's the first time I've been in an environment where nobody ever mentions the US dollar, right? Everything is ETH or now Bitcoin or whatever. in how much something is worth. I find that really fascinating in terms of the
Jeremy Rifkin wrote a book called The Third Industrial Revolution, where he talks about things will cost almost nothing to produce, much like how the internet made information free. We're on the edge of smart cities utilizing technologies like AI. AI could reach a point called the singularity, where it generates Nobel Prize-winning ideas every second. Blockchain technologies make systems efficient and trustworthy by verifying truth and authenticity. Blockchain can track everything from start to finish, which could eliminate corruption and make complex systems run automatically without the need for complicated checks and balances.
It's personal. I think, but I do agree it was supposed to be open source. That's why the whole thing was called OpenAI, and it's not open. They'll get there, but what I find fascinating, it's kind of irrelevant because the open source models are now performing at par with the closed source models. And over time, they'll just be better, and they'll have transparency and auditability and all the other good things. We're working with the Casper blockchain, which is now working on auditing AI systems in a powerful way. So that's really cool, some of what they were doing there.
Salam Ismail was talking about investing in Casper blockchain, and the reason why he wants to invest in Casper blockchain is because of the way that they're using artificial intelligence and blockchain technology. See, data sets are how the artificial intelligence learns and progresses to learn. So if you have data sets that are minted directly on chain, every iteration of that data set is recorded on chain, and you could go back to a previous version that was weighted properly. Right now, those data sets are stored in a very opaque manner.
And I want to talk a little bit about the blockchain. So my understanding is this is on the Ethereum blockchain. Why that blockchain versus the Bitcoin blockchain, which is maybe more well known?
Well, the Bitcoin blockchain is really not useful for the purpose of the products that we do. You know, one of the key functionalities that we use is the fact that you can issue new tokens and then use something called smart contracts, which are basically a set of rules on the blockchain that control how things move around. And that's really not something that we can develop in Bitcoin. That was kind of like the main, if you want, innovation that the Ethereum blockchain brought into the markets, to the crypto markets. And this is why most of the products are built on Ethereum and not on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is more of like a store of value asset and not really a blockchain where you can build other products on top of it.
Securitize recently announced news with BlackRock by tokenizing funds on the Ethereum blockchain. Securitize is a Ripple investment. You'd think if Ripple invested in a company, they would be able to have some type of influence on what blockchain they used.
A regulation might affect your new fund with BlackRock specifically. If you're on Ethereum, if you're using Ether, there are reports that the SEC is looking into that question, whether it might actually be a security. If, in fact, the SEC concluded it was a security, there would be more restrictions on transfer. Does that affect BUIDL?
It doesn't necessarily affect. I mean, we need to purchase ETH because we need to, basically use ETH to run transactions on the blockchain. That's how a blockchain, the incentive model of a blockchain works, that you have this token that allows you to run transactions and that people stake it to run the nodes. And that's what provides the security for the blockchain. Whether ETH is or not as a security, that's not for me to discuss. If it ends up being a security, I guess people will figure out legal ways of purchasing and selling it, because today in capital markets, there is like 40 trillion or whatever of securities traded daily, and that's not really a problem, right?
The SEC is going after different crypto projects and labeling them securities, but what does that really mean? It means that the companies that buy and sell securities just need a broker-dealer license. It's not really a deal breaker if one of the crypto assets is labeled a security. It's really a deal breaker for Ripple because it adds a little bit more friction to each transaction. So for payments, it's an issue. But for other crypto assets, it's really not that big of a deal, because if you could just buy the securities and use it,
So I would actually ask a question back, saying, what in society today is only one? Do we have one language? Do you have one type of smartphones? Do you use one programming language? The answer is no. There's always multiplicity. I think part of it does come from the blockchain world, where there was an assumption that there'll only be one blockchain and the whole world will fit on that, but that's extremely unlikely. So society has always had multiplicity. And so the question is, even if you look at the internet, the example you mentioned, There is no one internet. It is nothing but a network of networks. It has thousands of different types of providers, thousands of different networking companies, switch companies, gateways, telecom companies, device operators, fiber cable, submarine cable companies. I mean, you've got multiplicity of providers at each part of the stack, yet they're able to come together in a network because of a set of open protocols and then actually coexist.
We all have this idea or fantasy that there's going to be one blockchain that rules them all, but this isn't really how technology works. There's usually a myriad of different technologies that are offered for very specific use cases. And this happens on the internet today.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think 99.999% of the population have no concept of commercial bank versus central bank money, right? You have money in your bank account, that's commercial bank money. You take it out of the ATM, it's central bank money. Like, so there has to be, the value I think has to come in the use cases. You have to look at it, as Jerome said, you've got to look at it from the consumer point of view. What's going to make them use a digital euro versus other mechanisms that are open to them, right? So it has to be, something has to be better, right? It has to be faster, cheaper, or to my earlier point, you have to be able to do something you couldn't do today, right? And I think that's where the innovation will be. And then if you add in, to your point as well, if you add in, they know that it's ultra secure and backed by the government as well, right? Then maybe you have something there.
So this is an IMF document, and the IMF document is called Central Bank Digital Currencies in the Middle East and Central Asia. Now, they specifically mention Ripple Labs for the National Bank of Georgia, and it mentions that MENA oil importers, for example, Jordan, also rank promoting financial inclusion and efficiency of payment system as a key motivations for exploring CBDC. So if you're unaware, the Middle East and North Africa, the MENA regions, are very active Ripple corridors, and they're oil exporters and Gulf Cooperation Council countries. The motivation for CBDCs is to make payments more efficient, both domestically and cross borders. Qatar and the UAE are both Ripple corridors, and you'll see a bunch of banks in both of these regions are using RippleNet. So the central bank controls all of the banks underneath it. So whenever you see a bunch of banks using the same technology, it's pretty safe to assume that the central bank is on board with it, because the central bank needs to approve all of the bank's technology stack. So Qatar Central Bank and the UAE Central Bank most likely, well, I'm going to say like 99.9% sure that they approve RippleNet for all the smaller banks underneath them. And these are, pretty big oil regions that they're talking about. So it's pretty safe to assume that there's some connection between all of these different geographies with Ripple Labs. So Ripple took XRP, made instances of the XRP ledger, and is using instances of the XRP ledger for central bank digital currencies. So if you set up whole countries using the XRP ledger for payments, it's going to be relatively easy to position XRP in the center of various different countries trading between each other. That is the interoperability solution. Yes, there's ways to kind of bypass the XRP ledger to interoperate with different currencies, but you're kind of redesigning the same problems if you do that.
I think, if you reflect, for example, how the payment systems in many countries have been developed, and you're very familiar with this coming from the World Bank, many years ago, 60, 70 years ago, the payment system was in a way delegated to the banking system. Central banks decided, well, this is not for me to develop. Have you commercial bank develop it. And so it developed. But after a while, then you had the regulators pitch in and so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, we ended up with walled gardens. And what we want to avoid is precisely that. So from an architectural point of view, in the finance, in the economics, the idea would be to prevent creation of open gardens. What I think Nandan and Siddharth Pradhan have really make us see is we also need to provide the technology so that we can have a community of thinkers being able to participate. So also that from a technological point of view, this is not kidnapped by one particular player,
Payment systems have traditionally been walled gardens. This has changed over time. We see in India that they created something called UPI, which allows the private sector to create innovative solutions right on top of the foundation. There isn't a global ledger. However, regulated liability network utilizes quant in order to mimic a global ledger. But the issue is you only have big banks on the global ledger. What's interesting with crypto asset is everyone can participate. They are global, where everyone can build, utilize, or develop unique solutions. Bridging from a centralized or decentralized system is pretty straightforward. You have one account with $1 million worth of asset that is frozen on one ledger and issued onto the next. Bridging is a way for interoperability, and this is how the future will play out. We'll see bridging refined with multi-sig wallets and create a seamless system from the old world to the new. RippleNet is one of the open gardens that can swallow all decentralized and centralized systems, while other crypto assets serve different purpose. Whether that's DeFi or AI, we are seeing the walls crumble, and crypto assets by nature are open and decentralized. This is a perfect solution for moving money because moving money has plenty of roadblocks. Right now, everyone is questioning the United States and the US dollar because we have overprinted, oversanctioned, and overweaponized the dollar, so the world is seeking alternatives.
I mean, at the end of the day, you can have the aspect of competition and the fact that you might rely on a few players from an economic point of view. In technology, well, that's a field also where there is sometimes not enough competition. So I think we have to strive for it. We have to strive for it. And I think that we have at least from an architectural point of view, a good chance to make the system definitely more open, more competitive, more contestable as what we have today.
If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please take a moment to like and subscribe. If you enjoy content like this, please consider joining my Patreon or my ghost site, themjr.ghost.io. Thanks, guys.